Good evening, folks, and welcome to Here's the Deal. I'm glad to have you guys here tonight. I got a good guest. He is actually was one of my first guests when we first started this show. Just a second here. I'm sorry. I got a little bit of a technical difficulty going on here. And there. So I apologize for that, folks. Anyway, I got a good guest tonight. He actually started a podcast called Indoctrinated, and we'll have him on here. His name is Jake Schmitz. He's out there in Fargo. He's a chiropractor out there. Uh, if you guys follow him on Facebook, you've seen some of his stuff that he's done on Measure 4. And so I invited him tonight to have a discussion about Measure 4 and why we should support Measure 4. So with that, I'm going to bring Dr. Jake on. Good evening, Jake. How are you, bud?
Living the dream. How about you, bud?
About the same. So, first of all, thank you for being here. Like I said, I do believe you were one of our first guests when we started a couple years ago, and so I always enjoy having those conversations with you about different things, whether it be health and politics and all that good stuff. So, but as I was saying here in the opening, that you just started a podcast as well with two other gentlemen, right?
Yeah, it's called Undoctrinated, and it's me and two of my chiro buddies, and we're having conversations all around the area of medical and or spiritual, just indoctrination in general. And so talking of how do the first steps in getting through indoctrination is you have to understand the areas in life where you've been indoctrinated. And so we just spend time having conversations, just three best buds having conversations about what does it mean to live a life that is not indoctrinated? And so that's what we called Undoctrinated. And so you can look it up. We're on Spotify right now and Rumble, and we've got a Facebook page. That's about as technologically savvy as I can get. So I feel good about that.
I hear you there. It's I struggle with that quite a bit too. So Marvin helps me out quite a bit. So with the technological part of it, but at any rate, well, let's just move on then. And like I said, we're going to talk about Measure 4. Obviously, you've had some videos out there. You've been very vocal in supporting Measure 4. Let's just get right into it. The people that are kind of coming out against it they're called Keep It Local. Yep. And I just got done watching your video on that as well, and I found it interesting about who these people are and where the money is coming from that's backing them. So with that being said, can you go into that a little bit about who is Keep It Local?
Yeah, so you can look them up. Keep It Local ND, I think it's .com. So they have a website, and you can look at who all is backing them or who their donors and supporters are, which first and foremost, I think it's interesting is that to run a business, any kind of business in the state of North Dakota, you got to register with Secretary of State. Okay. So Keep It Local has done that. However, the problem with this is that they're set at inactive status. And so, I can't run my business as an inactive status. So I don't know if there's a law against that or if there's something, but at the bare minimum, before moving forward, like the Keep It Local North Dakota group is an inactive business doing business. That's kind of weird. And so I said this on my video. I was like, so if somebody wants to try to turn them in to the state, that'd be kind of cool. They get in trouble for running an illegal business in the state of North Dakota. But at any rate, it's a bunch of people who are all in some way, shape, or form benefiting from property taxes. So we think about the idea they're trying to purport that it's about keeping it local. We want to keep local control, and removing property taxes somehow loses local control. And what they're perpetuating is this idea that Bismarck is somehow the state capital, right? The legislators are going to somehow get control over how much money everyone gets. And they're trying to make you think like, well, Bismarck may not give Ray or Williston or, Dickinson or Minot. Bismarck might decide that Fargo gets it all. And I've heard that from people from Williston saying, because I'm from Williston originally.
Yep.
And so I've heard that from people like, well, I don't want Bismarck deciding where all the money goes. And I'm like, that's not how Measure 4 works. But it's Keep It Local. What they've done is they've gotten to people's heads that, the money's going to be gone. And so then Bismarck gets to decide. And I'm like, you haven't read the measure. And I would imagine most of the people from Keep It Local haven't read the measure either. It's a bunch of people who are either directly or tangentially benefiting from property taxes. And so we got teachers associations, administrations, we've got city commissioners, county commissioners, we've got townships, we've got real estate agents and or developers. And again, you'd be like, well, how do they benefit from property taxes? It's through specials, which is essentially, it allows the developers to develop without having to front any of those costs, which get deferred to taxpayers. And so you pay a hidden property tax called specials. You probably didn't know that. So I knew you knew that, Shiloh, but the average person probably doesn't realize that the 6.5% to 10% that you're getting charged in interest on your specials every single year, that's a hidden tax. So all of the keep it local people, there is zero desire for them to actually have local control, which would be the taxpayers deciding in a vote. Measure 4, on the other hand, it gives exactly that. It gives the locals control, that the cities, the counties, whomever, they're going to get the exact same dollar amount that they got that they're going to be from this year, from the amount that this coming up year, they're going to get that in perpetuity. They're going to get that just moving forward. And then if they need more money, what they need to do is go to the taxpayer and get them to approve. If we want to build a thing, or we want to do a fire that, or this, that, or the other, it goes to the voters to approve it. And so the definition of local control is locals controlling it, which is exactly what Measure 4 does. So the idea that keep it locals yelling and shouting about keeping it local, while at the same time they're not actually advocating for local control, they're advocating for city commissions, county commissions to maintain control over your money. That's all that they're advocating for, because they don't want the gravy train to be gone.
Right. So with that being said, I know on that video that you had done, you'd brought up the fact that since May, or this is what they claimed in May, was they had $276,716. Now, out of that money, so let's just 277,000. Half of that was from out of state.
Yep. About half. It's probably a little bit less than half when you do the math on it, but yeah, 50,000 came in from the American Federation of Teachers, which is out of Washington, DC. And then there was the National Education Association, which is also out of DC. So we got very, very liberal, very liberal organizations, national organizations supporting Keep It Local, which is, it's just wild to me that I've seen conservatives they get really like, I don't know about this. They're scared. And then they're supporting, they're like, yeah, I agree with Keep It Local because I like that idea, not realizing that they're agreeing with very liberal organizations. And again, I don't mean that people can't choose to be Democrat or liberal. You get to make that choice. Right. But I think it's disingenuous of the Keep It Local people to hide that. Like, you can find it. It just, you got to go on the Secretary of State website to get this information. So you got 50 grand coming in from two extremely, 50 from one, 50 from the other. That's $100,000 that's being used to try to kill a measure that was initiated and created and supported and pushed by patriots in the state of North Dakota who are trying to help you. So even if it's the person that you're like, I'm not so sure about this, we're doing this to help you at the bottom line, and it will help you. So yeah, that's what it's like. The money coming in, the chamber or League of Cities was another one. They gave just under 11,000. That's taxpayer money. That's taxpayer money. The League of Cities gets their money from dues, which is property taxes, and so they're supporting Keep It Local. It's just wild to me that the League of Cities, funded by taxpayers, is supporting a group to kill an initiated measure by taxpayers. So like, taxpayer money is going against taxpayer. It's just wild to me how that works, but I guess they get to.
Well, and that's like even some of our elected officials, or most of them, I guess. For instance, like I told you off air, here in Ray, our very own city auditor was pushing that $500 tax credit that we were getting, and at that time we were still collecting signatures for the measure for what is now Measure 4, and my reply was I'm not going to support that. I said you guys should be supporting and helping us get signatures to get this measure on the ballot and just eliminate property taxes. But I feel like either they don't understand, or they just don't, to your point, they don't care and they don't want the gravy train to end. So a lot of the questions that I get, especially from like our local small town firefighters and and EMTs and those types of people like that is well, okay, so where's the money going to come from? And what about schools? How are we going to fund schools? So those are the biggest questions that I get. And again, from the two videos of yours that I watched, they're both in between 13 and 15 minutes. They're very informal, and that's why I asked you to be here today or tonight. And so can we just go through a little bit of that of, well, where's the money going to come from? How are we going to keep our elected officials, you know, in check?
Sure.
Stuff
Yeah.
like
Well,
that. So
so
if you could just go ahead.
yeah. So let me start with this. Let me just say this. So that's another one that if you look on Keep It Local, they say there's no plan. And so that's one of their favorite things to say. No plan is a bad
Yep.
plan. So there's no plan for where to get the money from. Now, I'll say this, and maybe Rick could do a better job explaining because he obviously was one of the ones who created the measure, right? So he
Right.
probably had a better idea exactly where it was going to come from. So I'm going to come with ideas. I'm going to bring ideas to the table because I don't know exactly. I'm not in Rick's head. But what I
Right.
do know, however, is that if this initiated measure passes, okay, and this is going to help people really understand hierarchy of needs. So we have a mandate to pay for schools. That is a federal mandate, a state constitution mandate. We are mandated to pay for schools. They have to get paid for. Up to this point, it's been largely with property taxes. And then there's been some federal monies that go to it, and and then the state picks up some as well. So you're mandated. Mandate means have to. Okay. So
Yep.
if we pass Measure 4, if it passes, and let's pretend, right, for the sake of argument, there is no plan for where to get the money. Okay. I'm going to talk. I got a whole lot of stack of monies where we could use, but let's pretend that we don't have a plan. What will happen next? Passes, then right away, Bismarck, the legislature, has to get together. They're going to have to go line by line through the budget, and they're going to have to figure it out. They don't have a choice. So the idea like we won't have the money, we're not going to be able to supply schools or fire, police won't get funded, roads won't get funded. All of that is wrong. They are mandated to do so. So what would happen though is they would have to go through, hey, we've got X billions that we got to come up with. And then, they were going to say, and now they're going to have to like go through the budget. What don't we need? What do we need? They would have to figure it out. There isn't another option. They have to, right? So even if we didn't give any advice or there was no plan whatsoever, they would still figure it out, and they would have to. There isn't a third option. We have the money. They would just have to say, okay, we don't need this pet project. We should do, we're mandated to do this. They would figure it out.
So what is the amount of money that we're looking at if this measure goes through and we eliminate property taxes? Because there's so many stories and
Yep.
what to believe. Do we have an actual figure of
According to the peeps that brought Measure 4, it's 1.16, I believe, 1.16 billion per year, which is 2.3 something billion. Let's call it 2.3 billion. The Keep It Local people keep throwing a 3.5 billion per biennium around, and they somehow think no, it's actually 1.5 and change to come to some, so the math doesn't even work in their side. But whatever. Even if we said it's 3.5 billion every 2 years, which is 1.75 billion every year, so they added a $500 million. Not sure. Nobody really knows where they came up with their numbers. I would believe Rick over the Keep It Local people, because Rick was actually in the legislature. He understands budgeting and the appropriations. Like he actually has a decade of experience. So I would believe his numbers over Keep It Local, since again, we know who's supporting them. So we know they're not necessarily the most honest, but whatever. Even if we say it's 3.5 billion, then that means every biennium, every 2 years, we need to come up with that 3.5 billion number. And then we would go from there, and then we can, that's where the monies would to be the exact number. Even if we use their number, it's somewhere between 2.3 and 3.5 billion, and it depending on who you ask. But yeah, no, I always say it's like, well, we got plenty of money. We've got billions, and like legitimate billions chilling in special funds that most people don't even know about. It's on the state website. You can find it. In fact, I can tell you right now, I just got to click on which it is. Here we go. If you go to treasurer.nd.gov, and then that's the Office of State Treasurer, And then you can go right on that website, North Dakota Government Funds. And then there's a whole freaking list, and you can just click on it and then just take it down the rabbit hole, bro. It will blow. And I've got some of the numbers written down from some of them we can go through. But talking about where to find the money, like we got the money. Like anybody who says I don't think we don't have enough to afford this. I'm like, you have not been looking.
So then how do we keep this is where I have the hard time, because obviously our elections, they're messed up. And that's putting it politely, but we need to start by getting good people in the legislature, right?
Yeah.
And so that is where I see the problem. Let's say that this passes.
Yeah.
This is where I see the problem. And I just I don't know what exactly we should do there or we can do there. It's not going to happen overnight, honestly. But my main thing is even when I got involved 4 years ago is there's still a lot of people that have no clue what's going on, heads in the sand, don't want to hear it. Just they don't think that it affects them or anything. I think it's starting to come around because obviously the cost of food has skyrocketed. Everything has. Like we were just talking about this today at work, and we have a truck that needs to have some body work done, and we got some estimates, like 3 different estimates from around town, and they're just like astronomical. And I'm like, what do you guys expect? I mean, everything has gone up.
Yeah.
And so at any rate, I do believe that we need to get better people in the legislature because I'll say it, 99% of them aren't very good. They do not have our interests.
We go back to not property. We go back to the term limits. I think the positive is going to outweigh the negative. I think unfortunately we're gonna term out some people that probably were good ones. But there's a lot of people that need to go. We need to get some fresh blood in there, get some new ideas and new thinking. I mean, we have a lot. It's static. I mean, I would say if anything, if you want to define our legislature as anything, it's static. And it's a refusal to move forward, to move the ball forward, to gain any kind of positive momentum for the state outside of increasing the budget, because the budget is increased since 2017. Our state budget has increased 45%. So we were 13 billion. Now we're at 19.6 billion. So like us fiscal conservatives in our state, our state reps, and to your point about having the right people, man, they know how to spend money. Burgum being a fiscal conservative, he sure knows how to spend money. So we talk about like, where are we going to find the money? I don't know. Maybe just stop spending it. That might be a good idea.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. So you have some numbers you said that you might want to share.
Yeah, let's talk about
we could get some of them. Let's have this conversation then, and maybe they're listening and they'll actually take notes or something. So
it'd be good. I mean, if you want me to give you any of these, I can, like, whether it's you, Shiloh, or anybody listening. I see Carrie is on here commenting. So it's like I got all this stuff, and it's right off the state's website. So you kind of gotta dig through some links, and it gets a little bit dicey trying to figure out where all these numbers coming from. But there's certain pockets of money that the legislature has carved out for special, basically like pet projects. So we have our SIF fund. I'm going to start with the SIF, and that is the Strategic Investment and Improvement Fund. Now that is, again, now a lot of this is hard to find, like how much does it actually make, because the state does a really good job of hiding that or obfuscating it. So like you see a couple different numbers, but as far as I can tell, it makes about $1 billion, whether that's every year, every 2 years. It's currently sitting at $809 million, the account. And the SIF is for essentially the monies that are going into there is partly is going to be oil extraction tax. So we're getting tax revenue from oil, but then also that would be mineral acres that the state actually owns. So that would be oil that the state is getting, like they're the owner. And so part of it is that from like unclaimed or like high water mark for like under rivers and stuff, that's going into the SIF, or partly. And that's another thing, like oil extraction tax. You're like, well, the tax goes where? I mean, I'm telling you, that sucker is diced up so many different ways. You got chunk going here, chunk going there. And sometimes the chunk goes here and then from here to there. And they do it on purpose, in my opinion. They budget it that way on purpose so that it's like you would need to have an accounting degree to be able to keep up with this.
Yeah.
But even that, so even the Strategic Investment Fund, it's about, I want to say, they spent, I think this last biennium, it was somewhere to the tune of like $400-500 million. And my numbers might be a little bit off by that, but I'm telling you right now, I know for a fact they currently have $809 million. And so instead of taking it and investing into what you're going to find, there's a common theme with investments. The state will invest in these global companies. And I mean that, like, we're talking global. They're doing global investments through like these investment firms that are raking in millions off of us. These investment firms, they're getting millions. The legacy fund has paid out year to date $2.5 million for the people managing the fund. Anyway, we'll get to that. So that SIF $809 million. Why we just take like a portion of the income off of that, the earnings? Let's say $200 million out of the close to $1 billion that they're making. I'm not even saying let's take it all. I mean, I think we should, but like we could just like, if we do this, here's my idea. Here's just a plan. And this is just me spitballing. And I thought of this today. If we take chunks from all of the things I'm about to say and we put it into its own separate pot, that pot is going to, it could potentially be like 10 to 15 to even $20 billion. And now we'll get through that. But even if we take a portion of that, we pay down the property taxes every biennium, which is going to be, it's called $3 billion, just to be fair, in the middle. And then we're going to use the rest. We're going to do loans to those are all the things that the people, the political subdivisions are whining. Oh, we're not going to have any money. Well, you can apply for a loan. We'll give you a loan at 5 to 7% depending on going rate, and then that can be paid back that way, right? And so there's ways to do it. This is, dude, that's just one. The next one, Common Schools Trust Fund. Okay, there's a trust fund for schools. And it currently has $6.9 billion in it. That currently pays out about $250 million a year for education, which is roughly about 25% of the total. That's where the monies that are like that the state forks over for education is coming from the Common Schools Trust Fund. Now, that keeps growing every single year. So what that tells us is that the interest coming in from the investments for that fund are outpacing the expenses. That also tells us that there's leverage in there to take some of that monies towards lightening the bill even more, right? So again, I'm not advocating taking all of it, but we can definitely do more. We can definitely carve out of that. Now, in all of these funds, every one of these is a management company that's taking millions from it, okay? Every one of these has there's state employees that are being paid. One of these in particular, it was $50 million a year to run the program that's housing the money. It's just wild. Anyway, you can just stop me whenever if you want to say something, but I'm going to just keep rolling.
Yeah, keep rolling. That's
all right.
Why I asked you to come.
The Department of Trust Lands. This is the Sovereign Wealth Fund, okay? I thought those were the same thing because I'm like, well, that's weird. We have a Common Schools Trust Fund that has $6.9 billion, but then we have the North Dakota Department of Trust Lands that has $7 billion. Okay, they're two separate funds. Unless somebody comes on and says, no, they're actually the same fund. They're not. They're two separate funds. So we have $7 billion in the one, $6.9 billion in the other. Now, the Sovereign Wealth Fund is currently $7 billion invested, and that is invested. There was a podcast that is the company is out of. Let me click on this real quick. Let's see. The guy's name is Frank Mihale. He's the Chief Investment Officer of the North Dakota Department of Trust Lands. This oversees Department of Trust Land manages 2.4 million mineral acres with interest in more than 8,600 of the 17,400 producing oil and gas wells in the state. So this cat is managing. He's out of state guy. He just moved here, which is great. So now he lives here at least, him and his wife, which is kind of cool. It was an interesting podcast to listen to. He's just an investment guy. And so his firm landed a $7 billion account. Sweet. We could probably take some of that. We could probably, carve out a little bit of that. If we take the $7 billion, if we just take half of that and then like just set it in a pot off to the side, $3.5 billion, right? And the idea is that we continue to invest the way that they're doing this and making these ridiculous returns because they're making great returns. Next one is the Resources Trust Fund. This is the Water Resource Department, and that's kind of the department that's housed underneath this. That currently gets 20% of the oil extraction tax. If you want to find governmental wasteful spending, look no further than the Water Resources Department. And I'm sure they do some great things, but I'm looking at their financial reports. Holy freaking crap. $50 million each biennium is spent on operational expenses, salaries, and benefits. This department spends $19 million every 2 years on benefits and salaries. I'm like, how many freaking employees do they have?
No kidding.
These are the guys and gals that are in charge of like water, like they're the ones like dams and flood control and some of these other things. There's an interesting thing. Fargo currently right now is holding on to $50 million in it's almost like preventative flood protection. So somebody made the point earlier. I was sitting right here and I was explaining this to him, Devin out of Fargo here, Devin Chinsky, and we were talking about it. And he said, well, is Fargo going to have to give that back after the diversion? I was like, I bet that money's going to disappear magically. Okay, next legacy fund. We talk about the legacy fund. People get all
bent out of shape
about the legacy fund. If we just take the earnings off the legacy fund, stop investing it into, out of state, or they call it like the growth thing, which is basically the state investing into private companies. Knock that crap off. Take the earnings. That's about $1 billion a year. Earnings. Just earnings. I'm not even talking about the capital. Like, we don't even have to touch that. So if we have added up so far, we're already into multiple billions of dollars just in earnings every year. And again, that's a legacy fund. Now, this one will get you. North Dakota Retirement and Investment Office. So if you look this up, RIO, NDRIO, it's the RIO. It's the North Dakota Retirement Investment Office. It's a whole sub branch underneath the executive branch. And they're in charge of, that's the Teachers for Retirement Fund. That is also pensions for the employees, state employees. They also manage, that's the State Investment Board. And they also manage, all of the executive branch, all of the bennies, all of that fun crap. They're paying out roughly, this fund pays out about $265 million a year. And that's for bennies. That's bennies, retirement, all of those pensions, stuff like that.
Yep.
So that's a big number. $265 million a year, that's a big freaking number. So far this year to date, right? So we're what you can find online is to June, right? So up through June, has that fund has made $1.889 billion. Now it pays out about $265 a year, $265 million, but it's already made so far $1.889 billion. That account currently is holding $22.295 billion in investments. $22 billion.
So herein lies the problem, Jake. Everything that you've said, nobody knows this stuff. Nobody. And this is the kicker of the deal, is like, they want to get mad and they're like, well, we're going to lose this and this, but nobody will look. Nobody will do the work to actually see that it's right in front of us, that this is the problem, is that we've gotten lazy.
Yep.
And
yeah, it's crazy when you think
our government is just running
there's some of the stuff, Shiloh, though, that like it's set up in the state law, in Century Code, like legacy fund kicks money to the Bank of North Dakota, for example. And one of their purposes is for loaning money to political subdivisions, cities, counties, whatever. And what it says in the law, that they will charge. So it's just wild to me that if the city of, it doesn't matter. Say Fargo wants to borrow, I don't know, $100 million from this fund, right? Because I think it has to stay, I think, at $400 million, I believe is the number. It's in state law. I'd have to, I've got it up here in one of the 40 tabs on my computer. But they loan it out at 1.5%. What freaking loan can you go right now, Shiloh, and get a 1.5% note? Where could you do that? No, but the city can get a 1.5% note. Now, I understand, how are you going to pay that back? Well, that's taxpayers paying it back. I get that. But at the end of the day, like, you're using taxpayer money to fund pet projects of cities. And it's like, or we stop doing that crap and we put it back to local control, have the locals be in charge of it, vote through things that we want or don't want, right? So that to me is what drives me bananas. This last one, everyone pays into WSI, right? Workforce safety.
Yep.
I do. Everyone does, right? They currently are making $250 million a year. And again, this is all on the state website.
Yep.
Their expenses are about 125 million a year, and I imagine that changes, give or take. But right now, as of this year, especially using this year as the metric, it's 250 income, 125 expense. So we're doubling what's coming into what's going out, right? That
Mm-hmm.
tells me the premiums are too high, but whatever. That currently has $2 billion in investments, global investments. Why on earth would WSI be holding $2 billion and having it being invested in other, like, to what purpose? So we have a monopoly, right? WSI is a monopoly in the state
Mm-hmm.
of North Dakota.
It
They're
is.
currently they're currently hoarding $2 billion.
Mm-hmm.
To what purpose? Well, it would be really super simple for the executive branch to just be like, yoink, because they don't need it. They don't need
Yep.
it. They don't need it. So it's just, to me, it's just idiotic. We have all this money that's being housed in different funds for the express purpose of keeping it away from taxpayers, from keeping it away from the citizens, keeping it separate, keeping it siloed so that the state reps can come to you. And, some of these reps, they probably don't even know this, Shiloh. So a lot of the reps probably don't even know. A lot of the senators don't realize these funds are there because it's all freaking hidden. That's
Mm-hmm.
executive branch. So most of these are executive branch. They're not in the legislative branch. And so the legislatures probably don't even know that this stuff exists. So when they say we just don't really have the money, they actually believe, some of them actually believe that, even though it's
Yep.
wildly incorrect.
Well, so just to piggyback off that WSI thing, and this is another rabbit hole, but I'm going to go down it anyway because we experienced it with our own business. We talk about labor shortages and the different things that small businesses face, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I can tell you for one is the amount of taxes that you have to pay per employee and all that good
Mm-hmm.
stuff.
Mm-hmm.
When my wife had the daycare and stuff, and that was more crippling than anything,
Mm-hmm.
or the fact that it took anywhere from 6 to 8 months to get a background check done. Well, who's going to wait for a job like that? 6 to 8 months. It's just, if you want to know how to solve the labor shortage, let's get rid of some of these useless regulations.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
I mean, honestly, not to, because I am Second Amendment and for gun rights, but I mean, I can go and I can get a background check done and buy a gun. I'm a legal citizen. I don't have any felonies. All that good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So you're telling me it takes up 6 to 8 months to do a background check for the state just to work in a daycare or anything like that?
And
Really?
again, where's the problem, Shiloh? The problem is the state.
Yep.
The state is so backed up. They are so poorly managed. And again, they're probably great people, but like at the end of the day, state, they work for the state. They are on no time crunch whatsoever.
Right.
Like,
Well,
hey, it's 4:30, I'm out. Like they're
yeah,
not going to get any extra work done because there's no incentive to. So 6 to 8 months behind, they don't give a crap. They don't
they
care
don't
what
even
that does to
show
your
up.
business.
Yeah, they don't even show up to the offices. I mean, and this was even before COVID. And then when COVID got, we all know what that debacle was too. But it's crazy to me that we have these. You hear these politicians, and it doesn't matter whether it's to the local ones here in the city
Yeah,
to all the way up to the president. We talk about our labor shortages, but yet we do everything in our power
yep, of
politically to cripple that, whether it
course.
be regulations or, when COVID hit, then we started paying people to stay home. A lot of people still have that mentality of, as well,
Yeah.
I don't need to go back to work.
Well,
It's
I
just
mean, it's almost like the incentive is to crush the middle class. Like it's almost what it seems
right.
like. The purpose is to get rid of the middle class completely, which is
Hmm.
socialism. That's the way to do it. I mean, that's if you read any Marxist book, it's the step number one is got to get rid of the middle class. You can only have an upper and a lower.
I agree. Um, So another thing that you talked about in your videos was a bond and what a bond does, and getting into basically it's collateral for them. Could you just comment a little bit about what a bond is and how that works when we talk about when it comes to per se this measure?
Yeah. So bonding is essentially a political unit, whether it's a city, county, township, whatever, using the property taxes that they would have received. So essentially, it's using your house, my house, as collateral for a loan that they get from maybe the federal government. And then what ends up happening is they take these bonds and they put them on the on the free market essentially, and then they get bidded on by these big companies that come in and they basically own portions of whatever city or state or whatever. And so so that's the idea of a bond is I want to build a school. This happens in Fargo all the time, and it drives me literally bananas because there is no local control. The school board has the right to basically create these bonds willy-nilly, and they do, and they have. I mean, we're bonded. Devin would know the exact number because he's done a lot with the school board and all this stuff. But it was like, I want to say we're 100 million or something, 200 million. We've been bonded out, maybe even more. It's insane in Fargo. Fargo's just crazy. But anyway, and so what they'll do then is say, I need X millions, 50 million to build a new school. Let's just call it.
Mm-hmm.
And then they will go get a $50 million loan to build the school from these other companies that are basically privately owned, private equity companies that will bid, I'll offer you this rate at this amount of whatever's. And then the school or the entity, the subdivision, whatever, gets to choose which the best offer. And then they take that as basically, well, we bought the loan, they bought our business, but our political subdivision now has a $50 million loan with whatever terms they agreed on, and your house is the collateral. So if for whatever reason the township or the city or whomever goes bankrupt, you would lose your house because they leveraged your house.
Can you say that one more time for everybody to hear?
Okay, you would lose your house. I'll say it for the ones in the back. You lose your house. And again, that's the problem. You never own your house. We talk about property taxes, theft. You never actually own your house, ever.
And I never even thought of that part of it until I watched that video and you brought that up, because obviously you can lose your house if you don't pay your taxes in 3 years, or how that works and all that good stuff, so they can come and take it. But I had no idea about this bond deal and how that works. So
it's wild when you start looking at it, man. It's crazy. And nobody knows because they just do it. And you're like, it doesn't, I don't know, is this really affecting me? I don't know. The mills just go up. At the end of the day, it's kind of what happens is we look at our, we get our this freaking sheet that has our property tax stuff on it, and we just kind of go, huh? Oh, okay. Yeah, I see Gordy just commented that Beck is on at 9. I feel like you just saw that. Yeah. So anyway, I don't know. It's just wild, dude. I just look at it and I'm like, there are so many things that if the average person just knew, this is Measure 4 is such a no-brainer. Like it is literally a no-brainer. But people are so freaking scared. They've been said like schools are going to shut down, rural schools. I mean, it's wild. I mean, like, I don't know how some of these people sleep at night with the amount of time, the amount of lies they're sharing or saying. Because like, they know better. Like, the Keep It Local people know better. Like they know better. But like, they're totally comfortable lying. Like, I don't know. That's never sat right with me, man. Lying is just not in my blood. Like, I'm just like, the truth is just so much cooler.
I hear you.
So I don't know, man.
Well, Jake, I really appreciate you being on with me tonight and just talking about this. And, like I said, I'll be voting yes for it. And I'm just, I'm glad that you came on and explained some of the stuff, because I don't think, I know that a lot of people don't know how this all works or where the money's coming from or who these people actually are. They just hear keep it local and they hear that they're going to lose control, and that's all they hear. And it's not,
it's no different. I think the biggest thing, whether it's Measure 4 or picking the people you want to vote for, at the end of the day, like, have a reason. I don't even care what the reason is. It could be a bad reason, but have a reason. Like, and vet that reason, own that reason. Like, it's the same thing when you ask people, like, why are you voting for Kamala? Like, or even Donald, the, Trumpster. You just say, like, what's your actual reason? Like, the average person who's going to vote for Trump actually could name policy things. Like, they could say, here's how this will affect me. The average person that, in my experience, that's voting for Kamala, if you ask them, the best they can say is, I don't like that guy.
Yep.
Okay, that's fine. But like, how is she going to benefit? I had a conversation with my hairdresser because she owns a small business and she's kind of socially liberal, but fiscally conservative. And she's struggling with it. And it was like, well, you just got to first and foremost, how is that person you're voting for going to affect your ability to bring food on your table first? All the other crap is that's separate. You worry about the social issues and worry about the whatever. Like all that crap is after the fact. Is this person going to make it easier or harder for me to put food on my table? And after
Well,
that, great.
and honestly, Jake, the social issues and all that take care of itself if you're taking care of your family at the kitchen table. I mean, we
100%.
need to get back to that.
Yep.
That would
100%.
solve a
I'm with you,
lot of
bro.
this. Getting back to our kitchen table, doing for ourselves and our families, and making sure that they're taken care of. Because in the end, if you don't, this is what happens. We got all this,
Yep. Yep.
confusion, perversion, evilness. I mean, they don't even hide it anymore.
No. Put
I
it right in
I
your
don't
face.
even turn the TV or the radio on anymore, and honestly, like the music and everything, I haven't listened to like modern music, and well, we've been up here for 6 years, so at least 6 years. I couldn't tell
Yeah.
you who most of them are anymore.
Yeah.
My
Well, you
wife,
can't understand it anyway. I feel old every time I listen. I'm like, I don't even know what they're saying.
right?
Yeah. My
And
kids
so,
like it, and I'm like, I don't even know these words. Like,
yeah,
what's a sussy baka? I don't even know. I don't even know. I'm just whatever.
I hear you. So, well, again, thank you, and say your podcast again, and where can they find it?
Undoctrinated. So undoctor
Undoctrinated.
inated. So it's undoctrinated. We're on Spotify, Rumble, and you can just find us on Facebook is probably the easiest thing right now. I posted a crap ton of it on my on my
Mhm.
personal page. You can go to my personal page to find most of it if you want. So whatever. I have fun. It's great. It's changing medical and reversing medical indoctrination. So it's
Yep.
to me it's a lot of fun. It's this conversation just every episode. So to me it's fun.
Well, we appreciate you and your guys, and keep on doing what you're doing because the world needs more of it. So,
Love it, man.
but
Hey, thanks for having me.
hey, we'll have to do it again. Maybe this time not 2 years in
I
between
think it's
episodes.
4. I mean, it was back. It was with Luke. So I mean,
Yep.
it was a hot
Yeah,
minute.
it's been a while.
It was. I think it was over COVID. I think I was wearing this hat too.
Yep.
I've dusted
Yep.
this sucker off for you.
All
All right, man. I got to run.
right. Appreciate it. Thanks again. So that's Dr. Jake. And so I'm just very thankful that he decided to come on tonight. Like I said, why don't you guys check his personal page out? He's got a bunch of smaller videos on this stuff on Measure 4, and he really does a good job of explaining different things. He's not pushy with it. He's not attacking anybody. He's just coming with the facts, and that's what I think that we need more of. Share them. You guys can share this episode with people. Share his videos. Like I said, he's got quite a few good ones on his personal page. I know Rick has got a bunch of videos on as well. I've been scrolling their website, the endpropertytax.com. There's a lot of information there. If you guys just can share that stuff to your neighbors and have those conversations, we don't need to attack each other and get all heated. I think we need to get back to just having these conversations and be able to walk away if you don't agree. But at any rate, just share the information. Let's get it out there. Let's get this passed because I think it's gonna. Well, I don't think I know that it's gonna help us all. And so with that, I'll be on Friday again at 8 p.m. this Friday. I'm gonna have Jason Heitkamp on with me. We're gonna talk about his campaign and his run for DPI, North Dakota DPI. So I'll have him on, and I'm going to bring some of this stuff up to him that Dr. Jake has said about some of these funds and accounts that the school systems have here in North Dakota. So we'll be talking with him. And then Monday, September 30th, which is this coming Monday, Williston, Dr. Becker will be in Williston at the Raymond Center. And there's another individual. I think it's Bob Harms. I don't know for sure, but I know there's another individual that's going to be there. They're going to be debating. There's going to be information there again on Measure 4, but I'll have more information on that by Friday. But I will be there live broadcasting that event from the Raymond Center in Williston, and that will be that starts at 6 p.m. So with that, and then I have another show coming up in October here. I'm still trying to finalize everything with the guests and that, but Dr. Becker will be one of the guests. It'll be October 7th. That'll be another show that we're going to be doing here soon. So, yeah, we got kind of a busy schedule. I'll be doing a few shows here, and then we'll decide kind of where we're going to go from there. So, again, thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. Go ahead and share this episode with anybody who and everybody. We need to get the message out there and the information as well. So, all right, with that, you guys have a good evening. I will see you Friday with Jason Heitkamp.